Around 3 months ago, I discussed here on the channel the most optimal size of the Isles roster as well as the potential detriments of that number being succeeded, and my conclusion by the end of the video was a total of 20 species. Go check it out for more context. With new dinosaurs being added at a relatively faster pace nowadays, this topic is becoming more and more relevant, with the overwhelming majority of the community agreeing that the sheer amount of dinos planned for the Isle, 60 by the way, is way too much for both the game and the developers. Over the years, there have been multiple content creators either measuring the viability of each dinosaur in the game through their tier lists or conceptualizing their own rosters. And since many of you have been asking me to do exactly that for quite a long time now, why not? So today I will present to you the set of playables that I personally believe are the optimal combination for the Isle. Before I begin though, I want to make crystal clear that this is primarily for entertainment purposes. Despite my best efforts, there is no true selection that would be superior to any other. Different combinations will bring different results, and depending on your own objective, one choice might work what others wouldn't, but all of them, at least to an extent, can work if planned properly and used for the right concept. So, for my own roster, I placed some requirements and restrictions to make it not just more believable, but to also align with the vision the Isle has and fix some core issues the roster bloat will most likely bring, and also to make things a bit more interesting. Rule number 1. I can only use dinos that are already planned. Rule number 2. The selection will have a cap of 20 playables. Rule number 3. It is obligatory to have terrestrial, semi-aquatic and aerial species. Rule number 4. All 3 tiers must be represented, aka small, mid and apex. And rule number 5. No overlaps, meaning that dinosaurs cannot be too similar anatomically or mechanically and cannot overlap when it comes to their own niches. With so many choices at our disposal, you would think it's not as hard as it could be, but trust me, it was actually quite difficult to do so, especially with all the rules previously mentioned. But nevertheless, I will do my best in creating a synergetic, cohesive and overall enjoyable roster. So let's get to it. For briefness sake, I will only mention the dinosaurs selected for the experiment, so in case you don't hear or see a particular playable, it's because they are either cut off from the roster or were placed in another tier, since there are a few species which can arguably be part of one or the other. Starting out with the small tier, after careful consideration, the remaining dinos were Omniraptor, Herrera, Peki, Dilo, and Oviraptor. Even though the majority of this group are carnivores, most of them, Omni, Dilo and Ovi to be precise, are not tailored for small game prey. Omni is a generalist pack predator capable of hunting pretty much anything they want. Dilos are venomous nocturnal specialists with mechanics that promote a more solo experience, and Ovis are primarily egg stealers, so they do not pose any threat to anyone in particular. Herreras are arboreal scavengers which can also actively hunt pretty well and are probably the most dangerous small carni for Peki due to their tree climbing capabilities. And of course, Peki itself is an aggressive herbivore leaning towards the glass cannon category, being one of the few playables on this list with Fracture. The official planned roster has an oversurplus of small and very small dinosaurs, most of them being either so poorly balanced or still poorly designed that even right now, at this very moment, they are not played at all, even though Evrima has a very small roster. By limiting the small tier to only these 5, we kept the ones with well-designed playstyles and capable of being viable in the presence of a multitude of dinosaurs larger than them. This ensures that even if they are technically the weakest, they still have the stats and tools to provide players with an enjoyable experience. Now advancing to mid tiers, we have Tenonto, Para, Carnotaurus, Berry, Kentro, Enki, Styraco and Aloe. Tenno, despite being rather small mid-tier, is an all-round dino with a very versatile moveset capable of running away from most dangers and defending itself from the ones that can't, even against larger predators like Carno for example, making it a great choice for new players or for the ones that wish to play a mechanically flexible dinosaur. Para, assuming that it's not getting buffed to Apex in Evrima, is a rather tanky mid-tier with the stature and strength to face large predators like Acros as shown on its concept art. Its sonic roar also makes it mechanically unique, providing us with a peculiar playstyle that may potentially be actually enjoyable. Kentro and Enki are the two ultra-defensive herbivores, specializing in bleed and fracture respectively, with the former focusing on counter damage and automatically injuring opponents with its spikes, while the latter is a literal wall, being only challenged by apex predators. Styraco is the only Ceratopsian so far, replacing Dibble on the role of aggressive bleeder. Both are extremely similar, so honestly either one can work, but with the former being slightly larger and heavier, I decided to pick it instead, to give the specific playstyle a dinosaur with better chances at defending itself from a larger array of predators in comparison to the alternative. Barry, Carno and Elo have very well defined niches with absolutely zero overlap, making them the perfect choices for their respective roles. Barry being a mid-sized piscivore that can also defend itself from small tiers with ease and even hunt smaller dinosaurs in the water, Carno being a speed-focused ambush small game predator with a very unique and enjoyable way of play with its charge ability, catching their prey off guard and quickly hunting them down if small enough, and Elo, similarly to Tenonto, is a well-rounded carnivore, being relatively fast, high bleed, quite strong, fairly tanky in comparison to other mid-tier carnies, and possessing the grapple ability. Allosaurus is the perfect candidate for a balanced pack hunting mid-tier that in groups can face off apexes, or at least they are the ones with the best chance of doing so. And speaking of apexes, the 7 remaining dinos on the list we have Deinosuchus, Deinocheirus, Quetz, Spino, Theory, Trike, and Rex. Deinosuchus almost didn't make the cut, but in the end I decided to keep it due to its uniqueness of being a semi-aquatic ambush predator. That playstyle not only is enjoyable by many people, it heavily impacts the overall gameplay experience by placing fear on anyone that wishes to drink or cross any body of water. So while its presence on the list makes the semi-aquatic category a bit saturated to my liking with large playables, due to its large influence in the game as a whole, I ended up keeping it in. And continuing with the underwater theme, Deinocheirus is the only aquatic herbivore on the list, occupying the role of the territorial platypus that we all expected it to be. Its massive size and powerful arms makes it a very strong dinosaur, being probably one of the very few species that can face off pretty much anything and survive. But the true king of the seas would be Spinosaurus. This massive apex predator, while adapted for a semi-aquatic lifestyle, can also comfortably hunt on land, being the only apex that performs better than average on both terrains, although it does not excel on either one. A dino that does exceed on its habitat, however, is the most famous dinosaur of all time, Tyrannosaurus. We all know that this particular species is overused to no end on pretty much any dino game, regardless if it is survival or not. However, we cannot overlook how enjoyable and wanted its playstyle is. A massive damage dealer able to pin down prey, including large ones, extremely aggressive and violent, capable of decimating pretty much every opponent. It may be exceptionally hard to balance this big boy, but the gameplay potential it brings is too high to be discarded. Next is Quetz, being the only flyer of the roster. The primary focus of this giraffe with wings is being one of the biggest threats to hatchlings and smaller adult dinos, being able to literally yoink prey as big as a galley in seconds, creating a constant danger to anyone growing their dinosaur in a way that no other species can. And lastly, there's Theory and Trike. Both very dangerous herbivores, with the former leaning towards offense and the latter on defense. Thery's ridiculously long and sharp claws are excellent at piercing and slashing flesh, making this fluffy turkey a highly deadly opponent to any carnivore that tries to take it down, providing herbivore players with a mobile, heavily combat-oriented choice. Trike works in the same mentality, but due to its mass and anatomy, it is perfectly tailored for players that enjoy dinosaurs with an emphasis on defense that harshly punish their opponent's mistakes. And there you have it, my 20 dinosaurs of choice. Of course, many sacrifices had to be made due to my self-imposed restrictions, but in the end I am satisfied with the final roster. What do you guys think? Would you enjoy playing with this playable selection? Which changes would you make? Let me know in the comments below. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel and the content I create. If you wanna join the ranks, you can do so for only $1 a month, the link will be in the description. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and opinions down below, join our Discord server, engage with the community, and I hope to see you all next time.